Let me show you how to operate DCT, and maybe you can make some decisions if you want to buy a DCT car, or at least look like a superstar and like you're smart when you get into your friend's DCT car. The first thing to know is that DCT is a dual clutch transmission, which means it's basically like a robotic, automated manual car. So it drives as such. This does not drive like a torque converting automatic transmission. That means you're gonna feel the car slipping the clutch in order to get you rolling as you roll into the throttle, just like you would if you were engaging the clutch yourself. So here are the controls for DCT. In place of a typical gear lever, you have this little guy. In order to engage a gear, you would move it over, and that will put it into first gear. If you want it to shift on its own automatically, you go one more over, and you'll see 1D. Now it's in automatic mode. In order to put the car back in neutral, you just give it a notch over to the left. To put the car into reverse, push the stick all the way over to the left and forward. You'll also find this button here. This is going to be the intensity of your shifts. When traction control is enabled, you have 5 modes, and you can adjust that by toggling up and down. In order to achieve the harshest mode, you would need to disable DSC, and then you get another bar where we can go ahead and turn that up to 6. When you re-enable traction control, it will drop you back down to the 5th level. There are 2 ways to change gear when you're in manual mode. You can use the lever by pushing forward for a lower gear and pulling back for a higher gear, or you can use the paddles that are mounted on the back of the steering wheel. You would pull the right paddle to upshift and the left paddle to downshift. Driving a DCT is quite a bit different than a typical torque converter automatic. The car will not creep unless you apply throttle. So by lifting off the brake, it's gonna have hill assist, and then we're gonna roll backwards until I get on the throttle. In order to start driving, you are gonna need to apply the throttle. This is where the differences between dual clutch transmissions come into play, because in a Volkswagen DSG, they creep. You can release the brake and the car will move. In BMW DCT land, they do not. So I actually need to apply throttle to start to get clutch engagement. So why would anyone get a DCT transmission in a sporty car like an M3? I am certainly guilty of being one of those save the manual people in the past. And as much as I love the manual transmission, I do think that there are applications where a dual clutch transmission has its place. The E92 M3 uses the S65 engine from BMW. This engine does not make a whopping amount of torque. And in order to keep this engine spinning at or close to redline, the dual clutch transmission does a great job of keeping up with the engine. When I first got the car, I was worried that I wouldn't be able to downshift quick enough on the highway, because the car, like I said, the car doesn't have much torque. If I'm on the highway in 7th gear and I'm doing 75 miles an hour and I pin it, the car is not gonna go. It really isn't. How do I drop down 3 gears like that? And I was worried that this was the biggest flaw in the sequential gearbox, is that I would have to wait for the transmission to drop 3 gears. BMW is clever though, and there is a way to drop down to the lowest possible gear. What you do is you put your foot all the way to the floor on the accelerator, press the kick down button at the bottom of the accelerator, and pull the downshift button. What that will do is it will downshift you to the lowest possible gear that the car can engage before hitting the rev limiter. My favorite part of the DCT is the rev match downshifting. So when the car is in a fairly aggressive mode, you can pull the paddle and listen to it downshift. Whether you're in automatic or manual mode, DCT will downshift for you as you approach a stop. In manual mode, it'll hold that gear a little longer, so it won't downshift until you're close to idle, basically. Dual clutch transmissions may not be for everyone, and it's certainly a different type of engagement than a manual transmission. If you're looking for a good daily driver that wants to go in bumper-to-bumper traffic, stop and go, you probably want something that has a torque converter, because this is a little bit clunky. It's not bad, but it's a little clunky. You might notice that there is no park setting on the stick. So when you do park the car, you're gonna wanna move that stick over to the left into neutral, pull that handbrake, and when you shut the car off, it will engage park. always use the handbrake in the DCT. If your whole deal is save the manuals, this is sacrilegious, it's terrible, I'll never try it, all I have to say is don't knock it till you try it, because you just might like it. If you've got any questions about the DCT that I didn't cover in this video, go ahead and ask in the comments below. Thank you so much for liking and subscribing, and as always, respect the drive.